too many people think they're born ready for stuff. They think they're born ready for marriage. They think they're born ready for parenting. They're born ready for entrepreneurship. They're born ready to be a good teammate.
Athletes, entrepreneurs, and those who've embraced the necessary change for the better. They've endured, discovered, rebuilt. But what about you? Are you waiting for life? Or is life waiting for you? This is the Come Up.
What do you hold on to? What was the difference makers?
I'm gonna be honest. There was a lot of want to.
Okay.
But my dad was a Marine, and so there was a mentality that I grew up in our home of A, we don't quit, B, we just find a way, C, not that emotions and feelings don't matter, but we definitely don't live on them. And we don't base our decisions off them, and we don't base our life off them. Like, we can address feelings, and we can talk them out, but at the end of the day, they probably really don't matter when it comes to the end result and what we're chasing. And so there was a lot of times, my dad told me, I remember the first day, he's like, Heath, the hardest thing about this journey is going to be the eating. And I'm thinking about the running, I'm thinking about the weightlifting, I'm thinking about the injuries, I'm like, even at like 13, 14, you're like, you still have a perspective of like what's to come. And when Pops told me the hardest thing was going to be the eating, I had no clue what I was getting into. Well, he had this plan. He said, we're going to get Heath really big and really strong. We're going to get him to his goal weight by the start of his junior year so that he can be used to carrying that weight. And then by the time he's a junior, he's a man amongst boys, playing at 225 pounds here in South Florida at tailback, playing middle linebacker, doing the whole thing. So those first 2 years from, 14 to 16, like I was never hungry once for 2 years. My dad force fed me. And the times I didn't feel like eating, he'd always be like, you gave me your word. Thought you made a commitment. And some nights he would let me get upstairs, tucked in bed, and then yell upstairs and be like, hey, Heath, don't worry about it. Just go to bed. That kid down the street, he'll get your scholarship to Florida State. Don't eat your last meal. It's cool.
Oh,
just do you, Heath. That's the stuff that I would put up with. So there was times where I tapped out. That punk in all of us that wants to rise up, we've all got it.
Right.
I tapped out plenty of times, went and crawled in bed, or it might even hit a PB&J sandwich somewhere from my dad. There was a want to. But from a young age, I've had constant accountability. And I've tried to keep that even into adulthood. And sometimes it's harder to find in adulthood someone that's going to stay on you like my dad stayed on me. But I don't care who you are. Like, we've all got a punk in us that wants to tap out. We've all got a punk in us that thinks about our own wants and want to meet our own emotional needs first before anything else. And sometimes we get out of line. And especially as young kids, as our mindset is being trained, we get out of whack. And that's where we need people to come alongside us and kind of put us back into line.
Mentorship.
Yeah.
A good mentor.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in high school. You're a man amongst boys. Junior year. Right.
I got there, yeah.
So you get there. You start getting recruited. Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
Exciting. I somehow mom and dad always kept me so like level-headed. For me, dad was like, hey, listen, you go to a small private Christian school, we're not going to sacrifice your education for you to go to some bigger school. So you're going to stay here. If they're good enough, they'll find you. But recruiting was a bit of a challenge. And so we went to the Florida State camp every summer from my freshman year on, just to let Bobby Bowden and the crew kind of get their eyes on me. And so I had kind of had a verbal commitment from Florida State for my freshman year on. I hurt a couple kids so badly that it was being requested around our district that they not allow me to play on JV anymore. So they moved me to varsity, and that kind of opened the door for me to see something special here. But I went to the Florida State camp that summer. Bowden and all the boys put their eyes on you, and they give you these verbal affirmations and these verbal confirmations of, oh, you're going to be a Knoll. Well, I bled garnet and gold, and that's all I ever needed to hear. So sophomore year, more of that verbal confirmation. Junior year, more of that verbal confirmation. I had the Ohio States, the Syracuse, Miami was on probation at the time. Florida Gators wanted me to be a punter. Like I did it all. I mean, I went to such a small high school. I never really came off the field, and so I had versatility was probably the biggest skill set that I learned in high school because I had to do everything, and that versatility really suited me throughout the rest of my football career. But the recruiting process never really excited me. I wasn't the kid that was going to go take the recruiting trips and go get drunk and go to the strip clubs. Matter of fact, my senior year, I wasn't even – Florida State had told me, you've got a full ride. And so I wasn't even taking my recruiting trips because I didn't want to let down my basketball team because I didn't want to miss Thursday, Friday night games traveling to 4 or 5 different schools I knew I wasn't going to. And so here's where the second major kick in the gut of my football career came in is Mark Richt, who was the head coach of Miami. He was the offensive coordinator at the time with Florida State. Sitting in my family room with my family is like, hey, listen, we're probably going to put you on defense. I'm like, oh, what? Well, I'll save you all the details. Long story short, they were recruiting another fullback that didn't want them to recruit any other fullback. And so at the end of the day, I remember walking out of that room in tears, just mad, like emo mad, walk straight out to the weight room. I start clanging weights as Mark Richt is pulling out of the driveway in his rental car going back to Tallahassee. But that was the first, you're not good enough. We prefer someone else over you. And so, me, I start researching. This dude had 1,100 yards rushing. I had 2,300 yards rushing. I had 39 touchdowns. He had 11 touchdowns. He didn't play defense. I had 150-plus tackles. I kicked off. I returned kickoffs. I punted. I did. I'm like, all right, you want this dude? That's fine. You go get that dude, But I told him I'm going to make y'all live to regret that decision. Lo and behold, fast forward, Terry Bowden scoops in, the son of Bobby Bowden, who I wasn't good enough for. And the truth is, even on that day, I'm going to signing day, whatever it was, February 3rd, 1997. Then, Bobby Bowden calls the house. Oh, we changed our mind. Come to Florida State. And by that point, I'm like, nah, I'm gonna go play. I'm gonna go play for your son. Went to Auburn, and the rest was history. But that recruiting process, only certain people's affirmation of me has any effect on me. 1,000 people, and they could be rich, famous, awesome people, could praise me to all high heavens, and it has no effect on my soul. The people that I'm invested in, my daughters, then they know it too, and they use it on me still. They can crush my soul. Like, they can destroy my soul. Mom and dad still can. My sister can. The affirmation that I look for is from the people that I'm most invested in. And I always had, I'd kick in the butt from mom and dad, but I had the affirmation there, and that's really what still makes my soul kick. That's where, so that recruiting process never really, it didn't fill in anything in my life because nothing of that type was missing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Man, that's insane, right? Now, think about this. So you're at Auburn playing 2 seasons, right? And then it's the show.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the difference in the game in the show and your mental. How'd you prep? Like, so SEC, we all know, it is a fast game, and in D1, I believe it's fast.
Yeah.
But then I've talked to the pros like you. I've had conversations like, no, that's slow compared to.
Yeah.
So that adjustment, right? So now you're a rookie, and now you're not, men amongst boys. You're.
Oh, I'm the boy again.
Exactly. Yeah. So talk to me about that, and what did you have to stir up and, just to thrive? I mean, you had 10 seasons when most NFL athletes have 3.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't emotionally ready for the NFL game. I was physically ready. I was 6 foot, 252 pounds,
chiseled. Probably born ready, right?
I could. Nah, that's the whole basis of the built ready mentality that I'm trying to build and brand is the fact that too many people think they're born ready for stuff. They think they're born ready for marriage. They think they're born ready for parenting. They're born ready for entrepreneurship. They're born ready to be a good teammate. No one's born ready for that stuff. We have to be trained. We have to be molded. We have to be shaped. We have to be humble enough to figure it out and to ask for help. But I wasn't emotionally ready. I left Auburn early basically because I wasn't wanted. And so that was, rejection number 3. I laid my body on the line for that university, for my teammates, my coaches, and we had coaching changes. Terry Bowden got fired after my freshman year, a lot of different stuff. But I don't want to say forced out of Auburn, but after my junior year, I went to our head coach and it was like, our best running back was leaving. I had averaged 6 yards a carry that year in the SEC, proven my worth over and over and over again, been through hell and back. My sophomore year, after being freshman, my freshman year, I'll try to tell the story quickly. I played in 3 games, broke my ankle against LSU. As a fullback, had a couple touchdowns, became the crowd favorite. Dr. Andrews put a plate and 8 screws in my right ankle. And, I told him, hey, I'm going to be back for the Georgia and Alabama game. He's like, Heath, this is like a 4-month injury. Nobody gets back that fast. I'm like, well, bone heals in like 4 to 6 weeks, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, so the rest of that's just pain tolerance after that, right? And he's like, yeah, kind of. I'm like, I'm going to be back for Georgia and Alabama. So my freshman year, 3 games, broke my ankle, missed the rest of those 6 games, and then I get back for Georgia and Alabama, score touchdowns, play well. We don't win, but I was back with my team. Bowden gets fired. Tommy Tupperville comes in, and then I'm back to a little man. Like, you can't do anything right. He moved me to defensive tackle. As I was a running back, and he moved me to D tackle, not D end, to like try to use speed. So I just had all these setbacks where I constantly had to readjust. Like, do you want this? Are you going to quit? And I'm bus ride to Arkansas my sophomore year, I was about to tap out. I was in tears. I was so frustrated. I put in so much hard work, just so much effort into building this dream of playing football at the next level, and it just wasn't working out. And I was like praying to God. I'm like, God, I don't even want this anymore. And that day, Tupperville is kind of forced to throw me in at tailback in the fourth quarter. We're getting our heads kicked in like 31-0. I have like 75, 80 yards and a touchdown in the fourth quarter, and then they have to start me at tailback the rest of the year, and things work out. Well, my junior year, they recruit another a JUCO kid who was better than me, and so I played behind him, and we share the spotlight, and we great deal. He goes on, Rudy Johnson goes on to turn eligible for the draft, and so I just asked him, like, I don't want you to give me anything, Coach Tupperville, but will I go into spring as your starting running back? You got nobody on the roster other than me. Rudy's just left, Yeah. And he's like, no, you won't. I'm like, what else do I have to prove to you? So, and then he's like, oh, if you go pro, they're saying you'll be the first fullback drafted, and you'll probably go in the top 3 rounds. So then we start down that path. I take that route, rejection, never really good enough, and then decide to turn pro. I was exactly what he told me to be. He's like, listen, if you go run a 4.4, they're saying you're going to be the first fullback drafted. You'll go in the top of the 3rd round, and that's exactly what we did. But I remember getting into that training camp and dropping balls and not being mentally prepared. I hadn't had the coaches, and this isn't a knock on the coaches that I had at Auburn. I wasn't ready teaching-wise for the NFL. And then so many other different things were just kind of building up of even just like self-doubt, because you can't get constantly rejected. Even though I kept succeeding level to level, there was constant rejection all the way through it. And so there was things that I didn't even know were in my psyche that were already there. And then I get to a Mike Holmgren who, for someone like me that's a yes sir, no sir guy that will never mother F him back when he mother F's me, he's going to dog cuss me and just embarrass me in front of everyone else. Where if you're Ricky Waters or someone else and you like, he might slit your throat if you cuss at him, he would, oh, great job, it's okay, you'll do better next time. He was like this punk of a man. And so taking full advantage of the fact that I was raised in a military home. You don't ever disrespect authority, ever, never. There's never an excuse. And so I get so beat down over the course of my rookie year work, man, I want to tap out and quit. And I didn't really get my psyche back to what my dad had created me to be and what I feel like God had meant me to be until I got to New England in 2005. And Bill started to breathe life into me and get a lot of that madman confidence back. But then the Teddy Bruschi's, the Mike Vrabels, the Tom Brady's, the great leaders that were somewhat average athletes, but they were mental monsters. Those are the guys I started to tap into. And then that's where my career really flourished. And that's where I think it's made me really who I am today.
So talk to me a little bit about that, surrounding yourself by the winners, right? So you've always had somebody looking into you. Your dad pushed you to a point that made you succeed. then you get this rejection, right? So I look at it as mentorship, basically. You hang around with winners.
Yeah.
You start becoming a winner.
Yeah.
And you want to be a winner. And then winning is all you know. And obviously,
it's habitual, just like losing.
Yeah. So talk to me about that and how infectious that is and how it made a difference in your career.
Well, it's funny. So I guess I'd take you where that first started to kind of click into my mind was 8th grade. They were going to move me to offensive line for the first time ever. And I was kind of a little fat, chubby white boy from Palm Beach, Florida. That's what I tell people. People they have a hard time putting those two together, but that's just the truth. So my dad didn't know how to make me fast. He just knew how to make me strong. And so he's like, hey, this guy in our church named Ken Stone played 11 years in the NFL. Go ask him how you get fast. He played safety in the NFL. He can probably teach you how to get fast. Well, so that was the first time that I asked for guidance or mentorship or a coach, where I had to go out and seek it for myself because my dad had kind of always been there,
right.
So this was walking across the aisle at church to a guy and being like, hey, how do I do this? And then taking him as the authority, what he told me to do, writing it down, and then going to implement it. And there was something in me in 8th grade that took every word he said, everything he told me to do, wrote it down, and then did it every single night that summer before my freshman year. And then not only was I good enough to play, tailback on, the JV team, I only lasted on JV a couple weeks after he got me fast and they had to move me to varsity because I was hurting people.
Right.
So that mentorship, that asking for help, that humility aspect my dad taught me at 13 years old. And that's kind of been the key to my success. Because I would literally be in Vrabel's ear. Vrabel's locker was right next to mine. I had Corey Dillon to the right of me. I had Teddy Bruschi over here. I had all these kind of guys that they already had 3 rings at the time when I got there.
Right.
And like, why wouldn't I want what they have to offer me? And most of them all wanted to offer it. They were the great leaders that were willing to spend the time with you, that were willing to dive into you and be like, hey, try this, look at this, how about this, think about it this way. And that's the real key to success. And I think I might have gotten off a little tangent on that one, but that it starts with humility. We live in a day and age, I'm sure you see it here, a lot of these athletes coming here and they think they got the world by the tail and they don't have crap. And this me first, my brand, my stats, my this has crippled sports today. And that's why you see the Patriots, the Popoviches, the team first mentality franchises. They just continue to separate themselves when the weaker just get weaker and weaker and weaker because it's all me. Well, no one ever achieves anything great by
yourself.
You gotta.
It's a staff. It's a team.
Yeah.
So here's a question that most people won't ask, right? I hear a lot of spirituality coming from you.
Yeah.
And talk to me how important that is in your life too.
Well,
and did it come naturally? Because some.
Well, I was raised in a Christian home.
Okay.
I was raised in a home where mom and dad lived it, and they didn't just talk it; they walked it, which I think is a rarity. They weren't perfect. They were the first ones to raise their hand and say, "Hey, full of screw-ups." And both of them, I think, what has given me such bold faith in seasons of my life is knowing who they once were, and then who they are now. And if we're honest with ourselves, we don't see a lot of people change. Like most people are like, oh, they are who they are. I've heard a little bit about your story. I've heard some of the battle scars to get to where you are now and the fight that's taken to step out of being one man and becoming the man that your wife needs you to be, that you need you to be, So I'm always careful with the term faith or religious. I will boldly declare I believe in the Bible, every word of the Bible. I believe in the man Jesus that died on the cross for our sins. And so that relationship with him has been a growing relationship in my life since about 14 years old. So I grew up in a Christian home where I was taken to church and all this stuff. But about 14 was when my kind of personal walk started with this. All right, there's a God of the universe. He's real. He's not dead. He loves us. He's got a plan for our lives. The Word of God says that He wants to bless us. He wants to prosper us. He wants to protect us. He never wants to harm us. And that's Jeremiah 29:11. So I started clinging to that verse in a lot of ways. And as you go through young adulthood, you have your faith battles. I think our actions really tell us what we believe. And my actions a lot of times would say I didn't believe anything about the Bible. After 10 years of marriage, I walked through major moral failures that would scream, "Oh, you don't believe what you say you believe."
Right.
And so this idea of faith has been a backbone of my rock and my consistency. And it's somewhat humbling to say, but it's at every low point, it's where I've turned. And in my adult life, and I'm still becoming built ready in this area of faith too, that the foundation in which we build our life is very, very important. The foundation in which you had them build this building, which is the most beautiful sports performance facility I've seen here in South Florida.
It's your house, buddy. It's your house.
If the foundation was off just a little bit, this thing would have crumbled 8 months later. Maybe it would have been 8 years. It might have been 18 years, maybe 38. But if the foundation was off, it was going to crumble.
Right.
And so what I always try to drive, we let people set our understanding of what Christianity is based on other people's actions, and people never really go back to what the Word of God is saying. And this is, most people read a book and they fall in love with the author. This is the only book ever written where the author is in love with the reader, and that love never changes. And it's a story about how this God that we can't even begin to fathom had a plan for our life. And He's basically offering us if we want to come along on the ride with Him. And that ride's not easy. And I'm in a season of life now where I am fully trusting that, all right, God, everything your word says, boy, I'm banking on it. Otherwise, I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
Dude, I live my life the same way, man.
Yeah.
If it's not, all Him, it's I got nothing, man.
Yeah.
So according to my nature, myself and my disease, addiction, and it's all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
So if I don't have faith in everything, I have faith in nothing.
Yeah.
So I think it's super strong to say that you walk the walk, right? We might have troubles, we might go down different paths, but eventually we always feel it inside that we're coming back, right? And that's where the come up is. It's about coming back. The fight always continues. There is a way of everything coming back and being better.
Yeah.
Right. So let's go back to the Patriots, right? So you're surrounded by legends, really.
Yeah.
Right? So now you're building this winning mentality of, I don't understand anything else but winning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're creating this, you're in seasons, what was that, 5, 6, and 7?
Yep.
So you're in seasons 5, 6, and 7, and you're just growing into, because you're just starting to hit stride there, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to get my wind back.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell, like, when most people are retiring, you're on doubling up already, and you're just starting to get into stride in your career.
Yeah.
And this whole mentality, you see it. You can see it in the way you play. You can see it in the active life, the way you're walking, surrounded mentorship, and you're just taking advice.
Yeah. It was always and I don't know where I got this. Why does this work? Like, what's making this whole thing tick? Like, you walk into a Bill Belichick-led meeting, you from day one, it's different. Oh, okay, holy moly. We don't have highlight reels here. We have low-light reels here. Like, nobody's getting praised for the touchdown pass they threw. They are getting ripped to shred for the false step they took or the wrong hand placement. The detail-oriented approach there boggled my mind and almost overwhelmed me from day one. But then I realized Bill's kind of given us the answers to the test, like Monday through Saturday, through all these different variables of practice and what he's teaching us about the angle we need to take and all these different things that if we just kind of listen to the authority, put in the work to memorize it, practice it, get it as perfect as we can, come Sunday, man, these games are kind of cakewalk and they're a lot of fun. Where the stress and pressure of performance anxiety kind of went out the window because you were so over-prepared. Now, we prepare for 600 plays in a given week. We were only going to see 60 or 70, but he had us prepared for everything. He's pulling up tape. Like, we're playing the Giants. He's pulling up tape from one of their offensive coordinators who used to be at New Orleans 20 years ago and said, hey, he brought up this idea in the red zone way back when, so don't be surprised if we see it. I'm like, who in the heck pulls up a tape from 20 years ago from an OC that wasn't with the Giants, he was with the Saints, and like all these, just tying these dominoes together. But it was more than that. The more I started watching Bill, and the more I started watching the Rodney Harrisons and the Mike Vrabels and the Teddy Bruschi's, and even our offensive linemen, and they were all willing to not even play if it meant the team won. So, like, take a Rodney Harrison, one of the best, strong safeties ever play the game. Should be a Hall of Famer. If he wasn't so mean and nasty, he'd be voted in. Players wouldn't vote him for the Pro Bowl because he was hurting everybody. He was just the awesome, nastiest dude in the world. But like, there'd be game plans where there might need to be a free safety, and we've got to put 4 corners on the field. Rodney, that's right. We're going to win? I'll sit. If we're going to win, I'll sit. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the NFL. My touchdowns, my catches, my yards, my snaps, my tackles, my interceptions, my. And so I start looking at them like, man, all these guys are kind of willing every single week to morph into something different, where they might not be the Mike Vrabel that comes off the edge and gets 3 sacks in one game, and he might go 7 weeks without sniffing a sack, but yet we've won 7 games in a row, and nobody cares. Everyone's just happy. Everyone's thriving. Everyone's winning. And then guess what? Off the field, everyone else's kind of like personal brand is like almost folklore because of the team success. And so I start putting all these pieces together. I'm like, we're not the most talented team. Bill's probably the most talented coach, but he still kind of depends on us to implement everything that he's telling us. There's other teams that have X, Y, and Z that we don't have. But why do every week we show up and we're putting it together? And it always came back to one word. Bill was humble enough to put in the work. His humble mindset, which I know people think Bill Belichick, the last thing they think is humble, but he is, because he's the grinder that sets the tone for everyone else. He is the one authority. My dad told me as a young kid, anything with 2 heads is a freak. There's not 2 heads in New England. And nobody is disrupting his mindset, what he's teaching, or what he's implementing on that team. And so that's what I started to absorb. And then I started realizing, like, okay, hey, if I take what Bill's teaching me, and then I can go to Mike Vrabel. Well, he's one of the best outside linebackers in the game, and so I can ask Braves. I'm like, hey, what is it that scares you as a fullback? What is it that challenges you in X, Y, and Z? And so I started taking what Bill was getting me going with, and then taking it to all these other players that had been with him for years, and then just started adding to my mental arsenal. And it became little details of how to play the game. But now I take those mindset trainings into everything from parenting to trying to build built ready. I mean, it is the mental disciplines of kind of trying to dilute the water and see each and every little particle that's making it up, and then let's make each and every little particle something really, really special.
So now that, all right, so we get there, you have this amazing 10-year career. The dream's over, right? And you're how old?
I was 32.
Okay, so you're 32,
yeah.
Which is basically when
life started,
right?
I got to 10 years. I only wanted to play with New England or New Orleans, and neither of those opportunities were available at the time, and so I retired. Now, what made it easier to retire was the fact that I had a national TV gig waiting for me at the NFL Network. And so there were so many players, and that was kind of like my second goal. And when I went to college, like, my mind was already so made up that I was going to go to the NFL that I'm like, oh, well, what would be cool when I'm done? Well, I'd love to be on TV and talking about the NFL when I'm done. And so I majored in communications and started down that road. And then throughout my NFL career, I purposely tried to give really good interviews so that I could build a brand of, hey, this guy knows what he talks about. I was the fullback, the realist that thought I have to go back to Palm Beach or go back to, New Orleans or New England, somewhere, start local and build my way up, because fullbacks don't get national TV gigs.
Right.
Well, lo and behold, I did. And so 10 years, reevaluate. The reevaluation process became a lot easier. because I had a national TV gig waiting for me in LA. And so I never had that real step away from the game moment that so many guys have to swallow that pill of like, the locker room's gone, the lights are gone, the platform, the stage is gone. Because I kind of went from a fullback platform, right, which is some weeks I play 50 snaps, some weeks I play 14, right, you know. But then, man, I'm moving to national TV in LA. So in some regards, my platform got even bigger. So I didn't have that initial letdown of like, I've lost so much until about a year and a half ago, you know. And so then that's where rubber really meets the road in a lot of ways.
That's what builds the men, right?
Yeah, and that's what it's what you find out. You find out what you're made of, you know. And listen.
Let's walk through that. Yeah. I think we should, because it makes built ready. Right?
Yeah, and that's where it really came from.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
And heck, the one thing I love about Built Ready, and I think the one thing that people connect with me so much on social with, is that I'm getting built ready. Like I'm really no different. You know, my 10 years in the NFL makes people look at me for something different, but at the end of the day, my pain hurts just like their pain. My rejection hurts just like their rejection. Their humiliation feels just like my humiliation. I've had to walk through things that, because of my personal brand and platform, that other people wouldn't. You know, I can't really speak for any other men, but you know, we're now, a year and 8 months removed from being publicly shamed and falsely accused of sexual harassment. You know, myself, Marshall Falk, Ike Taylor, Warren Sapp. I mean, the list goes. There was 7 or 8 guys that this lady came out and complained. And I'm not here to talk about her. I'm not here to talk about anybody but myself. But that was devastating. What was more devastating, I spent 8 years building a charity for victims of sexual abuse. And so I can understand how desperate people do desperate things, especially if they have been victimized. And I'm fully convinced that my accuser had been hurt in the past. By whom? I don't know. It's not for me to decide. Her actions spoke of something that was a desperate victim, and she moved and reacted that way. I can get over that. And honestly, I have. I wish her no ill will. Forgiveness is a very, very easy thing for me, because I've realized how many times I've screwed up in my life and how many times I've needed just limitless forgiveness from my Lord and Savior, but also the people around me. Right. But the way the NFL decided to handle the situation was gut wrenching. Okay. And it still is in some ways, you know. And so I am almost a year away from the first time they threatened to fire me if I wouldn't sign a bunch of their silencing agreements. Obviously, I never did. They spent about
you walked away from
it. Yeah, and listen, I have fully moved on. That active living God that I was talking about a few minutes ago has asked me to do a lot of tough things, and he has asked me to forgive and move on, drop the lawsuits and everything else. And so I have chosen to do that, just trusting the injustice of this whole nature to God, who judges fairly. And so that's where we're at. But this, I thought I was somebody that I wasn't. And that is a hard pill to swallow, because in life we cling to what we think we know, and we don't know what we don't know.
Okay, and I can get behind that.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And so when you're forced into a season of life where so many things are stripped away, you know, not just the national platform, because I could really care less about that, but your brand and your name is tarnished nationally. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, you're wondering, man, I wonder what these people are thinking about my daughters. I wonder what they're thinking about me. You walk into a restaurant, you're like, man, one person's false accusation. And I went to the nines for the NFL, you know. I took lie detector tests. I turned over text. I turned over pictures. I gave them all the evidence that they needed to build their case against this woman. They beat her down, and they settled with her. And they did what typical businesses do. They wanted to keep everything quiet. They used and abused me, and that's fine. Now I've got to move on and handle that without being bitter, without being angry. But life changed in a drop of a hat. What was most scary is everything I'm good at in the human realm, they took away by allowing this woman to tarnish my brand, which Fox, they're not hiring me. ESPN's not going to hire me anymore. CBS, ABC, NBC. Like, you are literally left with, what do you get? You can't coach because no NFL team can hire you because you've been branded this way. The NFL Network just fired you. Like, everything that I'm good at, everything that I was created here to do, love on people, teach, build people up, help them digest the game of football, use this mouthpiece. Right. They, in a human realm, stole from me, because in this PC day and age we live in, no one's hired anybody. Right. Marshall Faulk, first ballot Hall of Famer, can't get a job. Heath Evans, fullback, 10 years or not, he ain't getting a job either. So rubber met the road in a lot of ways. And truth be told, it really pushed me back again to the foundation of my life, which was my relationship with my Heavenly Father. And there's a story in the New Testament called the prodigal son, because I had been living like an idiot, and I went through a divorce in 2012, 13. You think you heal from stuff like that, but you're so focused on the kids, you're so focused on other stuff that you never really heal. You get down the road 5 years later, and you're like, holy crap, man, my life's a wreck. And you thought you had it all together, but really you didn't. And there was a bunch of war wounds that shattered your heart in a bunch of ways that as men we think we deal with. We think however we cover them up, we cope, whatever it is. But I had a whole bunch of different coping mechanisms that I didn't even know were coping mechanisms that were ripped away from my life in a moment's notice. And I was left with the pieces of what's left. And so that prodigal son, that was me. I ran home real quick. I'm like, God, I need some help because I'm in a mess. And we've been in a year-long grind of climbing out of that pit, and we're still in the process. And it's still part of the Built Ready. It's the Built Ready message. It's we put in the hard work. We don't run from the pain, the days of depression, the days of anxiety, the days of really not knowing the next step. God, I'm taking it back to you. Your word says you got a plan for my life. Your word says if I stay rooted here, that you're going to work this out somehow, some way.
Everything always works out. So here you are, just got hit hard.
Yeah.
Right? We're starting over. But you have this gut-wrenching thing like, all right, so what do I build? Yeah. Talk to me about Built Ready and what it stands for and where it's going, man, because that's the exciting part, right? Yeah. So you just got high, mountaintops, valleys, mountaintops, right? And now I just see this valley, you're in this valley and you're coming up, and Built Ready, it has everything. Yeah. It has faith. It has the come up. It has hunger, but it has a foundation that you can build anything on.
Absolutely. And
that's where I want, okay. And it's not like life is over, man. It's not starting. Here we go. Right. So talk to me about Built Ready and where it's going and who Heath Evans is now, because you're not the sportscaster. You're not, NFL's gone. Everything, like you said, everything that you're great at. Yep. Which is great, and I'm going to curse a little, which I think is bullshit, right? Because
it was.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's not it's not all of you now, right? So now it's like, okay, now I got to dig deep inside and see what I'm made of. Yeah. And what else can I build, right? Yeah. Because I'm here. I'm still here. I've gone through so much shit. Yeah. And you're still here. You're still grinding. You're still believing. So Built Ready, that's what it's all about now, right?
And I'm still believing that my purpose is for other people. Like from day one, like I was most excited about the fullbacks. We don't get wealthy playing in the NFL, but I was excited about that financial because I love to give. Right. Like, so one of the first things I did was start our charity. Like I love helping people, and so I think the exciting and scary part is like God, now at 40 years old, like Built Ready kind of says it all. The idea that anyone is born ready for anything of significance is absolutely foolish to me. And the people that get to the mountaintop and don't thank anybody got to be the most miserable people in the world, because nobody, I don't care if it's a grandmother, a business influencer, a mom or dad, a coach, there's been people in our lives that we can't take credit for that have helped us achieve the success that we have achieved. And so the Built Ready motto is we are always in a position of being built ready for what is next in life, and that this is a never-ending battle. And if we choose to hit pause, we're not only not going forward, we're going backwards. Like there is no neutral ground in life. We are moving one direction or the other. And honestly, in the way I believe, I mean, I'm fighting for one team or the other. I'm fighting for me and all my selfishness, call it evil, or I'm fighting for others and what the Bible tells me my life is for. My life is blessed to be a blessing. And so, God, how are you going to bless this next venture? And so I started out with a dream, and it is still being molded and shaped every day. And I have been everywhere from Seattle to meet with the owner of Top Golf to some of the best educators in the world in Houston just last weekend. I've been blessed with so many guys like you, so many guys that have wanted to help. And so I'm still kind of praying through, but I want to bring faith and fitness together. What the heck good is a healthy body if the soul is rotten? Right. You know, and so, but if our soul is healthy, but our body's falling apart, then there's still some health in a healthy soul.
Absolutely.
But if we have a healthy body and a healthy soul, and we bring these suckers together, what can men around the world accomplish? You know, if we can get men that have a healthy enough soul, but by the grace of God, really look at, you know, what are my deficiencies as a husband? What are my deficiencies as a father? What generational scar wounds am I passing down to my two daughters because I'm not willing to deal with heart pains that I got from my mom and dad unknowingly? What bitterness am I passing down to Ava and Naomi if I don't fully forgive this woman who falsely accused me? What if I don't fully forgive my ex-wife? What if I fully don't forgive the NFL for the way they mistreated me? What example, what anger, bitterness, unforgiveness am I passing down to the next generation? And so I want to take what God's given me in the NFL pass space and the fitness space that I've been blessed enough to kind of walk into, and then use my own transparency and my own vulnerability and my own moral failures and my own mistakes and my own heartache and my own pain to connect to other people's pain. Because people can look at it and be like, oh, I could never relate to Heath. But the truth is, like my pain of being rejected by the NFL and being used and abused after serving them for 18 years is no different than the pain that some guy feels when his wife walks out on him and the rejection that he feels.
Pain is pain.
Yeah. And our pain is our pain. Right. And so I think it's important to not make it smaller than what it is, but not make it bigger than what it is. And that there is an answer to all pain. And it isn't drugs and alcohol. It isn't women. It isn't more money. It isn't building a business.
Buying new stuff.
Right, you know what I mean? Because like we can go out in this parking lot and there's, you know, G-Wagons and there's all kinds of gorgeous cars, and guess what? The most miserable people I've ever been around are the wealthiest people, because they've got everything this world says they need to be happy.
Got a big hole.
And yet still nothing filling the void. And so, listen, the name of Jesus ruffles a lot of feathers this day and age, you know? And mainly I think it ruffles them because people like me have lived so crappy trying to represent that name. But he is a good God, and there's people in a lot of pain, and they're searching for a lot of answers. And I don't have them all. I actually have very few. And I'm finding a lot of them myself in my own painful season. The verse says, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right, you know, I'll fear no evil. Well, I don't have to fear it, because if I'm walking and I've got this promises of God wrapped around me that my faith counts to me as righteousness as I walk through them, I'm good. But it says we're walking. We can't stop. We talked about that a minute ago. We're going one way or the other. And you know as well as I, there's a whole bunch of times in your season of life where you wanted to stop. You know,
dude, I wanted to quit. I have quit.
Yeah, you know, and so and in ways where the world would never say, "Oh, I quit." You know, when I walked out of my marriage, that was quitting. You know, even times in the last few weeks after tweaking this pec, like I've had forms of quitting come up in my mind. Now, have they been weeks? No, but have they been hours? Yeah. And if those hours aren't dealt with properly, those hours become days, and those days become weeks, and those weeks become death. And so that is the built ready mindset. Is I want to love people. I want to be open and full of integrity about my past mistakes, as well as my past accomplishments. And then just know that, listen, man, that there's a dude that wants to build a community and do life together with a bunch of men that realize none of us have all the answers. We're never going to be perfect in this faith walk. But man, we're going to be hungry taking care of our bodies. We're going to be hungry taking care of our souls. And we're going to come together and just love each other and see what the heck happens.
just holding each other up.
And
I love that, man. That whole built ready motto is insane.
Man.
So my last question, man, let's talk about being an entrepreneur. All right, let's talk about you went from athlete to full-blown entrepreneur and the challenges that brings to you, man.
It pisses me off every single day.
Welcome to entrepreneurship, right?
Because I've always been a huge dreamer, and I have no doubt. Like, I don't know what Built Ready is going to look like at the end. Like, I have my current day dreams of what I think it is.
Right.
But I also had current day dreams of what I thought my NFL career was going to be. I always said 10 years and reevaluate. I envisioned that 10 years being a lot prettier than what it was, and full of a lot less heartache than it was,
But you got to 10.
I did. Right. And so, but also what I firmly believe is my dreams were so lofty and they were so outrageous that I still accomplished way more than anyone ever thought I would have. But if I would have subparred my dreams, I never would have gotten to the 10. I might never have gotten there. And so my dreaming has been magnified again. And I'm a writer. And so I'm constantly writing stuff down. And I'm a mass dreamer. Like, I don't think, like, everything I dream about has very little to do with me. Like, it's always about the trickle down economics of how it affects other people. Because my greatest legacy would be that, man, like, I don't care if it was 10 husbands and fathers or if it was 10 million. But if we had great impact on 10 dudes that got honest with themselves, got their hearts healed, impacted their wives where they went out and they were helping other women flourish, they were impacting their kids where they're going out and impacting their friends and helping them flourish. Like, the trickle down, you give me 5 dudes that want to love their wives right, serve their kids, serve their community, humble themselves every day, and just sacrifice their life for the benefit of others. Like, the trickle down economics of that in 15 years is crazy. But in 50 years, and then 100 years, and then I get to look down from heaven one day, and I get to see this ripple effect of a few people that I had the opportunity to love on and affect. And so, what stirs my blood about finding a way to make a way in this entrepreneurial space is impact. Listen, I've had money. I've never had Tom Brady money. I've never had all the businessmen that I've been to. I've never had their money. I had fullback money. I was joking around with all my boys. But I now find myself in a season where my ability, outside of the grace of God, to provide for my family was stripped away because of one woman's lies and one company's not willingness to do the right thing. And so, but I got to take that as a challenge. I also have a firm foundation that my God doesn't mismanage anything. And that all throughout Scripture, there were so many people that were mistreated, falsely accused, and what happened? They kept fighting, they kept battling, they kept the faith, and then they ended in massive positions of huge impact. And so my disgrace was national. Was it fair? No. But am I going to suck my thumb and whine anymore about it? No. And I really haven't whined much. But it's funny. The more you push away and the more you work on the forgiveness and the more you work on the details of the heart wounds that can hold me back, sometimes the darker the days get. Because what I've realized is more and more crutches have been removed. There is a safe feeling about a lot of money in the bank. There is a safe feeling about a wife next to you.
Safety net.
Yeah, there's a safe feeling about a girlfriend. There's a safe feeling, it's a false feeling, about so many other vices that us as men run to, whether it's drugs or alcohol, whether it's pornography, whatever it is. There's all these different things that offer us this false comfort. Well, the Lord has me in a season of life where He is everything other than my 2 daughters. He has either asked me to surrender. There was false comfort in suing the NFL. There was comfort in knowing that I was fighting for justice. There was fighting that I was fighting for. There was false comfort knowing that, hey, there might be a $15, $20 million lawsuit here that I'm going to win one day. Right. So when the Lord asks you, like, you going to trust me with this injustice? You're going to get in 1 Peter and you're going to do what I'm asking you to do? Or you're going to literally, just shut this down and trust me to handle this and protect? Like, those are tough things. Literally, just in the last couple of weeks, might even tear up on this one. But most amazing woman in the world. I love her to death. She loves me. Awesome relationship. Heath, give her to me. I got things I got to heal in your heart still. I wrestled with that one for a month, you know? And so everything of like a false sense of what we can rely on, other than my 2 daughters who, thank the Lord, are healthy and strong and amazing.
And funny.
Yeah. They're idiots like their dad.
Yeah, if you follow Heath on Instagram, you'll know they're hilarious.
But I'm thankful for this season because I'm walking through the valley of shadow of death. But I know, like, the same mental monster that God was building at 14, he's still building now. In every season of life, the impact has gotten grander and grander and grander. And I have gotten better and better in ways as a man. And so, and that's what I'm most excited about. And so, again, I'm going to keep trying to finalize this vision of where we're going. But ultimately, I want to impact men's lives. I want them to be like, you know what? I can be vulnerable. I can be transparent. I can tell the truth. And we're as sick as our secrets.
Absolutely.
So when I'm hiding something, whether it's from a family member or my brother who we're in life together, like, hey, you can't fully love me unless I'm fully exposed to you.
That's right.
You know, and if I got demons in my closet that I'm not willing to deal with, you can't deal with them. And that's just the way that we're built. Honesty is the pathway to every bit of freedom that we want. And so that's what I'm after. I'm going to try to live a life of integrity, loving and kind, and let people see a flawed human, but an example that's fighting to do it the right way. And then just, hey, I'm going to get in a fight with Heath. You know what I mean? I'm going to go fight life with Heath. You know?
Dude, I'm there. 100% behind you, brother. Man, I think I'm going to close it with that. That was beautiful. You know, Built Ready. I can't wait. I'll be next to you the whole way, man. I'm really stoked, man. Thanks for coming, man. And
thank you.
That's a wrap. All right, one last thing, guys. If you are, where can they find Heath Evans? Like, where do they want you? Where do they follow you? Where can they read more? Where can they see you more?
I tried to make it really, really simple. So at Heath Evans 44 on all the social handles, and then BuiltReady.com. BuiltReady.com right now currently is some limited merchandise. Big plans. This entrepreneurial spirit that we were talking about is building and bubbling up in me. So it will be changing here in the near future.
All right. Well, you heard it there. BuiltReady.com. That's the way to go. All right, man. Thanks a lot.